Hello learners, welcome to Technical Minds for Society's YouTube channel. In the previous video, we have discussed about the advantages, disadvantages and the applications of C++ as well as Java language. In today's video, we'll be starting with JavaScript and we'll discuss about its advantages, disadvantages and the applications we'll be using. Apart from this, if the time permits, we'll start with PHP and Ruby and C Sharp. These are the languages we'll be talking about in this video. So before moving further, I would like to request you all, please kindly consider subscribing to the channel. Like this video if you found the content useful, and also share it with your friends, colleagues, classmates if you like the video. So before any so let us move to the next part, which is about the JavaScript language. So JavaScript is basically an scripting language, right? So what are the advantages we have for JavaScript? It is basically client side scripting language. So client side JavaScript is very fast because it can be run immediately, right, within the client side browser. So unless the outside resources are required, JavaScript is unhindered by any network calls to the backend server. So this is the first advantage we have for JavaScript. Then second advantage we have is simplicity. JavaScript is relatively simple to learn and to implement. Then popularity. JavaScript is used everywhere on the web browsers, right? So most of the client side scripting part is done with the help of JavaScript. Then interoperability. JavaScript plays nicely with the other languages and can be used in a large variety of applications. Then next advantage we have for JavaScript is server load. So because it is on client side, that reduces the demand on the website server, right? Then it gives the ability to create very rich interfaces which are user friendly as well. So apart from these advantages we have discussed, there are few disadvantages of JavaScript also. So as we already mentioned, it is used on client side. So client side security is a major issue with JavaScript language, because the code which we are executing, that is on the user's computer. So it can be exploited for malicious purposes. That is the one reason we don't use JavaScript for the scripting part. Then browser support. JavaScript is sometimes interpreted differently by different browsers. Although it is interoperable, but still sometimes the interpretation part gets confusing. So this makes it somewhat difficult to write cross-browser code. So these are few advantages and disadvantages we have for JavaScript. Now we'll move to the applications of JavaScript. So first application we have is web development. So JavaScript is a scripting language which is used to develop the web pages, right? So suppose in this JavaScript we have, this is developed in Netscape, and JavaScript allows the developers to create a dynamic and interactive web page to interact with the visitors, and we execute the complex actions using JavaScript. So it allows the users to load content into a document without reloading the entire page, right? So most of the websites in which validation is there, right, in this case validation like the password authentication type things are there. So JavaScript is used over there, and to support external applications including some PDF documents or some widgets are there, some flash applications are there, so JavaScript is used over there. So some of the websites which are built by use of JavaScript are Google, YouTube, Facebook, Wikipedia, Yahoo, Amazon, eBay, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Right. So these are only few of them. Mostly the web applications, web pages, they use the JavaScript for their coding. Then next application is web application. So various JavaScript frameworks are used for developing and building robust web applications, right? So suppose in Google Maps you are using, right? So if user want to explore a map, they'll all they have to do is click and drag the mouse to particular area to get a detailed view. So this all is powered by JavaScript, which interacts with the browser without communicating with the servers. So popular JavaScript front end frameworks that we use to build the web applications are React Native, React, Angular, Vue. So some examples we have are Netflix and PayPal. So these two web applications are developed with Angular JS, JavaScript framework, and application programming interfaces are also used, right? Then third application we have is presentations. So very popular application of JavaScript is to create interactive presentations as the websites. So for this we use Reveal.js and Bespoke.js libraries to generate the web-based slide decks using HTML, right? So if you want to create interactive slide decks with transition styles, themes and slide backgrounds in all CSS color formats, so we'll be using Reveal.js for that. And Bespoke.js library is a feature heavy framework that includes features like scaling, animated bullet list, syntax highlighting, etc., right? So even if you are not very good with any power programming language, you can easily use this set of libraries for building presentations as websites using JavaScript framework. Then we have next application, server application. JavaScript is also like used to write server side software though, right? Through Node.js, which is an open source runtime environment. So developers can write, test and debug code for very fast and scalable network applications. And the top companies like Walmart, PayPal, Uber, GoDaddy, and many more, they have adopted the Node.js strategy language for server infrastructure. Then we have web servers. So Node.js allows developers to use JavaScript to create a web server as well. So Node.js, which is event driven, it moves to the next call without waiting for the response of the previous call. So the servers quickly transfer chunks of data without any buffering. So the HTTP module, which uses create server method for creating a server. Then we have the use of JavaScript for gaming environments, right? So if you want to create games on the web, you will be using JavaScript. The combination of JavaScript and HTML5 plays a major role in games development using JavaScript, right? So there is a library uh, Easel.js library that provides very rich graphics for games. HTML5 provides total access to the web without additional plugins like Flash. And there are few examples of the games which are built using JavaScript and HTML5. They are Tower Building, Crosscode, HexGL, right? And then next application we have is Art. So a recent feature of HTML5 in JavaScript is Canvas element, which allows you to use it for two-dimensional and three-dimensional graphics on a web page, right? So various digital art projects could be built on browsers using JavaScript. Then we have smartwatch apps. So Pebble.js is the JavaScript framework by Pebble, which allows the developers to create applications for Pebble watches using JavaScript. Then mobile apps. So this is the most powerful application of JavaScript to create apps for non-web context, meaning for things not on internet, right? So we use React Native framework over here, and it allows the cross-platform mobile app building where developers can use a universal front end for Android and iOS platforms. Next application we have is okay, for building, we want to program a flying robot, for example. So JavaScript can be used for that. Node.js ecosystem could be used here. Users can control numerous small robots, creative maker projects, and IoT devices, right? So, drones, flying robots, quadcopters, these all can be controlled with the help of JavaScript programs. So, these are the few applications we have for JavaScript. Next, we have the advantages, disadvantages, and applications of PHP. So PHP is the most advantage we have is it is an open source and free of cost software. It can be downloaded from anywhere, and it is readily available to use for events or web applications. It is platform independent, right? You can run it on any operating system like Unix, Linux, Windows, etc. Applications can easily be overloaded which are based on PHP and connected to the database. So due to its faster rate of loading over slow internet speed, it is beneficial than other programming languages. It has less learning curve because it is very simple and straightforward to use. So whoever is familiar with C programming can easily work with PHP. It is more stable for a few years with the assistant of providing continuous support to various versions, right? So we are discussing the advantages now for PHP. Then it helps in reusing an equivalent code and not got have to write lengthy code and sophisticated structure for events of web applications. It helps in managing code easily. It has the powerful library support to use various function modules for data representation. PHP's built-in database connection modules help in connecting databases easily, reducing the trouble and the time for the development of web applications and content we are creating, right? So apart from this, okay, the development of web applications and also the content based sites, it is easier in PHP. Then popularity of PHP gave rise to various communities to develop communities of developers, right? So that means the if you want to hire someone with PHP knowledge, there is a vast range of developers which are available there. Then last advantage we have is flexibility, which makes it ready to effectively combine with many other programming languages in order that the software package could use foremost effective technology for every particular feature. So these are the advantages. Then we have the disadvantages of PHP. So it is not very much secure due to its open source uh, feature, right? So because the ASCII text file is often easily available. Second disadvantage we have is it is not suitable for giant content based web applications. And third disadvantage we have is it has a weak type. That means incorrect data and knowledge to the users could be delivered. Then PHP framework got to learn to use PHP built-in functionalities to avoid writing additional codes, right? Using more features of PHP frameworks and tools that can cause the poor performance of the online applications. And PHP does not allow change or modification in the core behavior of the online applications. And the PHP frameworks are not equivalent in behavior, so does their performance and features, right? So PHP is a very powerful tool supported by very large community and plentiful reference documentation are there, but other languages are there which are easier than this particular language for web applications. It is believed that by the developers that PHP features a poor quality of handling errors, right? So debugging is not very easy if you are using PHP, and it's highly tough to manage because it's not competent modular, right? It already imitates the features of the Java language. So these are the disadvantages we have. Now the applications we have for PHP includes websites and web applications, server side scripting, right? Command line scripting, desktop or GUI applications, processing and saving user input from form data, setting and working with website cookies, restricting access to certain pages of your website, and one example we have the largest social networking platform Facebook is written using PHP language. So this concludes the advantages, disadvantages and applications of PHP. So the next language we have is Ruby. So first let's discuss the advantages of Ruby. So Ruby offers plenty of out of the box features for web development. It gives developers the freedom to apply creative solutions, right? It is similar to Python language and it is also an open source language. So with this set of advantages, we have certain disadvantages of this language as well. Its flexibility means it can be difficult to debug, right? And also it is very rarely used as compared to other languages, so it has very few use cases other than the web development, and it has a small support community than Python. Python is widely used, whereas Ruby is very less used, right? And also its popularity has been declining since the advent of new languages like Python and others, right? So let us discuss the various use cases in real world. So web application is the first application of Ruby language. So we have different libraries in Ruby. As a programming language, it is very good choice to create all kinds of web applications, right? Because it is easy to use, codes are extremely fast and offers very reliable features, right? So if you have like less budget and you want to do a startup, so in that case you can follow Ruby or use Ruby instead of the other languages. Then we have e-commerce use case. So Shopify you must have heard about, right? So Shopify was uh, like Ruby on Rails for its infrastructure, right? So Ruby is basically used for Shopify website for e-commerce, right? If you are building an online shop and want to have it up and running in the least possible time, then you will be using Ruby development, right? All your help desk, payment gateways, email campaign platforms, each and everything will be easily developed by any Ruby development outsourcing company, right? Because language has various libraries for this part. Then we have content management. If you are planning to create a content centric website, then you'll be using Ruby here, right? So multiple libraries are there. You can build a site with ready to use features, and not just for creating content but also for sharing and distributing it among your audience, right? So there are several SEO features for you to power up your content with the best practices for ranking on search engines which are available, right? Next application we have is custom database solutions. So Ruby on Rails work excellently with custom database solutions because this framework uses Active Record, which allows for easy database management without needing any SQL, right? So it also integrates itself with database management systems that gives you the possibility to manage complex databases. Then the next part we have is next application we have for Ruby is prototyping. So as we already mentioned above, Ruby is perfect to create test versions before working on a fully fledged application, right? So it is easy to use. You can create a basic structure in no time to check if your design is feasible or not, right? So it will save you a lot of time in the upcoming steps. So it allows you to work on early sketch that you can show to the rest of the team for them to see what you want the final software to look like. So it saves your time and effort. Now let us move to C sharp. So advantages of C sharp include it is an object oriented language, right? So it will be working around objects and its you can say the communication between different objects. Then it has automatic garbage collection feature. So whenever the object is not in use, that memory will be freed up and it can be used by the other parts of the program. It is also a cross platform language. That means you can use the same program over all the operating systems on which you are executing it. Then it has backward compatibility, so the language like C, it has the similar feature like C++ and C had the compatibility backward, right? So in the similar way, whatever program you have written in C sharp, that will be working fine with the previous versions also. Better integrity and interoperability as compared to some other languages. So these are the few advantages we have for C sharp or C hash language. Then comes the applications we have for C sharp language, right? So of C sharp include, first one is web application development. Okay, games using Unity could be generated. Then we have the web applications, client server applications, Windows applications, that means the applications that run on desktop, web services application, console applications, and class libraries. So first one is the web application development. So regardless of the platform, you can still use the C sharp programming language. You can build dynamic websites and web pages using .NET platform or other open source platforms. Then for Windows application, Microsoft created C sharp for Microsoft. So there is no question why it is popular in building any Windows application, right? So it makes your development process very smooth, and functionalities like C sharp garbage collection will perform excellently, right? Also, developers can count on the community support and documentation of developing applications and programs that are specific to the Microsoft platform's architecture. Then for games, in the gaming world, developers prefer C sharp programming language. This language is particularly robust in building fan favorite games, right? So Unity game engine is there, which is very popular game engines today is built using C++ and C sharp. So game developers use game engines like Unity to build video games. It has more than 1 billion active users, and they are increasing day by day. It is also a trusted platform for 1.5 million active users worldwide. So these active users continue to develop award-winning games and AR/VR experiences, right? So C Sharp integrates seamlessly with the Unity engine, and for mobile developers, it can be used virtually on any modern mobile device or console using cross-platform technology like Xamarin. So it if you want to break into the game development industry, or you want to join the bandwagon of virtual reality, then you can leverage the programming language potential, right? So it is specifically useful if you want to go for game development side. So these are the few applications we have for C sharp. This is all about the programming languages which are most widely used nowadays. And after this, I have attached two slides for the references I have used for the creation of this series. Now, after this particular video, in the next video, we'll be discussing about the R programming in detail, its syntax, its different types of variables, etc. Right? So, we'll start learning R programming in the next series. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing the channel. Also like the video, and do share with your friends who might find it useful for their learning process. Thank you all for visiting this channel, and in the description I have given my Instagram handle as well. So if you have any queries, you can connect over there as well. Thank you all for joining. Keep learning.